I'm going to bring in my legal panel now to help me break down the testimony we are seeing so far from these two prior bad act witnesses offered by the state. Here in the studio, still with me, criminal defense attorney LeeAnne Lynch, and joining us from our brand new Manhattan studio, former federal prosecutor Doug Burns is standing by. Doug and LeeAnne, thank you both so much for lending us your expertise. And Doug, I want to toss the first question at you, please. We know typically we can't use propensity evidence in a court of law. I like to use the example, once a thief, always a thief, just can't do it. But sometimes the rules allow you to. In this case, we're seeing that exception playing out. And Doug, how do you think the prosecution is doing so far in reaching that end goal of establishing that pattern of predatory, sexually assaultive behavior?
Well, first of all, prior bad act evidence is somewhat controversial and tricky because it's a little bit of a fiction. The argument is it's not probative as to whether he did what he's charged with in the courtroom here, but as you perfectly explained it, Julie, we're trying to establish, a pattern of conduct. It's hard for people to process that and to simplify it, in the real world. If you have a case hypothetically where somebody's charged with one incident and there's a celebrity dynamic and you might be scratching your head, all of a sudden here are all these other ones. So prior bad act evidence is a very, very difficult terrain, difficult landscape, and it makes it harder to defend the case. Now, how do I think they're doing? I think they're laying it out calmly and straightforwardly, obviously. And, it is what it is, so to speak. I did hear the report about Arthur Idala's cross. I know Arthur, obviously. And the point is he's trying to establish that in a meeting, the individual didn't mention a second incident. That's interesting because generally, if you don't mention an incident at all, the comeback is people are traumatized they didn't. But here, if that person mentioned one in meetings with prosecutors but not the other, that is a little something to work with on the defense side.
Excellent point, Doug. LeeAnne, I want to ask you about that point Doug made. Give me your thoughts about that and the defense really exploring that well on the cross-exam.
Well, I agree. These prior bad act witnesses are going to be very damaging, or potentially could be very damaging to the defense. And I think they have to find a way to kind of switch that narrative and flip it back and shape it into something that could be helpful. And I think you're going to see the defense trying to accomplish that. How effective they are is yet to be seen.
LeeAnne Lynch, Doug Burns, thank you both so much for that expertise. We're going to step aside, take a break right now. I want to make mention of something that you probably noticed. We've got that jury deliberation clock up on your screen for Florida versus Donald Hartung. 13 minutes and counting. And again, this is a death penalty case. We're going to watch things closely, let you know if we hear anything from that jury deliberation room. Stay with us here on Court TV Live.